Welcome to the Thinking Room. In today's episode, we take a deep dive into Bernie Sanders and his speech about the Israel and Palestine war. So get comfortable. This is a long one. Let's get into it. I want to talk a little bit about the ongoing wars that we've got here. And specifically right now, I want us to take a look together at this speech here by Bernie Sanders. I think it's a really, really well-made speech here, and it really does sort of drive home what's actually going on, shall we say, in the wars over there right now. Actually how Israel themselves, how they're acting, because they're not acting like a civilized people at all in the slightest, in my view anyway. So let's just take a moment, let's watch this together, and let's discuss it, shall we?
Mr. President, pursuant to Section 36B1 of the Arms Export Control Act, I move to discharge the Committee on Foreign Relations from further consideration of S.J. Res. 138.
The clerk will report the motion.
The Senator from Vermont, Mr. Sanders, moves to discharge Senate Joint Resolution 138, providing for congressional disapproval of the proposed foreign military sale to the government of Israel of certain defense articles and services from the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Mr. President?
Hold on just one second. I'm just going to pause it there just for 1 second, right? I'm trying to understand why America spends so much money in the first place to Israel. Because they're a pretty damn rich country. They're pretty damn rich. But the US just, they're giving them so much money. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Especially when you consider the state of the problems within the US itself. Mental issues, the homelessness, the veteran homelessness, the drug addiction, the crime. There's a lot of issues in the US, hell of a lot. Far more issues than what we have here in the UK. I mean, we have a lot of issues in the UK, but quite compared to the US ones. But I mean, where is the justification of spending your own taxpayer money on foreign military aid, foreign help when your own country is falling apart at the seams? Just something to think about for a moment. I'm probably going to pause this every now and again just so we can just have a little bit of a save, and then we'll move on. So let's get into this now.
Recognize the senator from Vermont.
Thank you. Mr. President, let me begin by thanking Senator Kelly not only for his remarks and his work as a U.S. Senator, but for his service to our country in the military, and I very much appreciate his support for these resolutions. Mr. President, 60% of our people here in the United States live paycheck to paycheck. They are struggling to pay for groceries, for housing, for health care, and increasingly the ability to fill up their gas tanks in their cars in order to get to work.
Okay. Now, 60% of people in a country, I mean, that is a lot. You know, it's the majority. It's the bigger portion that are struggling. And I mean, I don't really quite understand why he needed to put this bit in about the gas. I mean, it's irrelevant, really. The price of gas, it's going to go up because of the war, because of the strait being closed. That's going to go up. But in the grand scheme of things, the gas going up a bit is just edging people a little bit further. But the problems were already there prior to this. So, yes, gas issue, of course, it's going to affect everyone. I noticed, normally I can fill my car up, £40, fills my car up, does me a couple of weeks. I went to fill my car up the other day. It was something like 60 odd quid, nearly £70 to fill it up, which is absolutely ridiculous. I can't afford that, you know, I just can't. So I'm just walking places right now because I just can't afford it. Okay, yeah, let's carry on.
We also have a $37 trillion national debt. Bottom line,
$37 trillion national debt. I mean, that's insane, right? Absolute insanity that any country could have that level of debt. And what's crazy as well, I mean, they're a huge economy. So how they've got into that level of debt is beyond thought, really. But I mean, you're taxing everyone so much. How are you still in so much debt? And clearly, the money isn't being used to better society. So what's happening with that money? Where is it going? Like, where? You know, $37 trillion of debt. That is more money than anyone can perceive. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with that sort of money. £1 million is a lot of money for me. I know it's probably nothing for you. I mean, a couple of grand's a lot for me, but hey, just an average guy here. But I mean, how how can we fathom such a thing of that much debt? You know, how is it possible for a country to get in that much debt and yet still be just throwing money out everywhere, left, right, and centre, except putting it back into your own country? It makes no sense. But none whatsoever.
the American people, whether they are Democrats, Republicans, or independents, conservatives, moderates, or progressives, want to make certain that their tax dollars are spent responsibly. And in strong and growing numbers, they do not want us to continue spending billions of their taxpayer dollars in support of the illegal, horrific, and expansionist war policies of the Netanyahu government in Israel. Since October 7th, 2023, the United States has provided over $21 billion in military aid to Israel. And
$21 billion in aid to Israel, a country that's already got a significant military budget. Actually, bear with me just 1 second while we're here, because I was looking at this earlier and I actually found I was looking at some comparison because I wanted to talk about the Lebanon section. So I found this earlier. This is what I'm looking at. Let's go and look at, where is it? So this is just a comparison of like military might between Israel and Libya. I was looking at, because I was trying to fathom in my mind, like, why they're attacking Lebanon in such a manner, and it's just none of it really adds up for me. But where was it? Where is there? Bear with me a second. So I mean, we look at the population stats, right? As you know, Israel have got almost double the population of Lebanon. Their total, I think, like, I did tally this stuff up a little bit earlier, but I was not so bright. I didn't write it down, but I think I worked it out like something that Israel has, its military might overall is something like 6 or 7 times what Lebanon has, which is a lot, right? Hell of a lot. So let's look here. Briefly, let's look here. The defense budget for Israel. So 34.6, is that billion? I think that's billion, right? Yeah, 36.4 billion defense budget. And then we look over here at Lebanon, right? 800,000. Or is that 800,000? Oh, sorry. 100 million. So there's big difference. I mean, look at this stats. Yeah, that is a huge deal. Not a tiny little bit. That is massive. So I mean, if this is the budget they already have, right, which is absolutely insane, why do they need more money? Why a country's just saying, "Oh, here, let me give you some more money. Let me give you some more money." And what's interesting as well is that Israel, not only are the US not only are the US giving money to Israel, they're also then selling them weapons. So what they're doing, well, in sense, what they're doing, they're just giving them free weapons, aren't they? That's the sense of it. So we go, oh, here you go, Israel. Here, have a load of money. Oh, but you're going to need weapons. So why don't you buy some weapons off of us? Maybe they're doing a discount, probably. Wouldn't be surprised. So basically, you're just giving them free weapons. You're just giving away money that belongs to the American taxpayer. You're just giving it away to them. Just giving them away. Just make it make sense, will you? Make it make sense. All right, let's get back to this.
Today, we are saying loudly and clearly, enough is enough. Mr. President, we all know that on October 7th, 2023, Hamas, a terrorist organization, attacked Israel. They killed more than 1,200 innocent men, women, and children, and took hundreds of hostages. I believe that there is no disagreement in this chamber that, like any other country on earth, Israel had the absolute right to respond to that barbaric Hamas attack.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we all saw what happened. I don't want to sit back and be one of the, a conspiracy theorist and say, oh, it's probably set up, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go into that. We're just here to think critically about it. So it's just say that is what it is. We saw that happen. We saw how horrific it was. Lots of people murdered. Lots of people hostages. Yes. But there's also, along those lines, yes, of course, you have the right to defend yourself. And you have the right to retaliate. But there is proportion. And proportion matters. Say, a country attacks one country, they kill 1,000 people. Well, then the other country has the right to attack back in a fair proportion, which would be kill 1,000 people. That's a fair proportion. I don't agree with any killing. Nobody should be killing anyone. We shouldn't be having wars. We should be having sat down discussions about things, not wars. No one should be at war. We should not be having a war and watching people die, especially when you see 90% of the people that die are just innocent. They're just innocent people. But like I say, proportion is what's important here. So let's look at this and analyze the next sections of these to see how much proportion there's been. So let's see. Well, I'm going to write this down here just so that we remember. So 1,200 people, right? You'd say 1,200 in the year.
But, Mr. President, Israel did not have the right to violate international law and wage an all-out war of unspeakable destruction against the entire Palestinian people in what experts have correctly concluded is a genocide. Israel.
That's an interesting point as well. Israel and the Jewish people, they should, and please don't get me wrong, I do not think this is a religion. I don't think this is about religion necessarily. I do not have any issues with anybody. No religion. I don't care whether you're a Muslim, you're Jew, you're Christian, you're Protestant. I don't care about it. None of that stuff matters to me, right? Because we're all people at the end of the day. We all bleed the same blood, right? But yes, the Jewish people, been through it themselves. And now what it looks on the outside is they're now doing it to others. And what is strange about that as well is like, if you think that, okay, maybe there's a lot of bitterness there through the genocide that the Jews went through themselves. However, that doesn't really make much sense, does it? Because what they're doing now isn't fighting against the original people that done genocide upon them. They now seem to be going and being genocidal against a completely different people, and that doesn't really sit well with me, especially considering that they have been through the horrors of it themselves. Their ancestors lived through it, you know, and they know they felt the pain of that kind of war themselves. Yet they're happy to push another set of people through that. Just doesn't ring right to me. Okay, let's move on.
Israel did not have the right, out of a population of 2.2 million, to kill more than 72,000 Palestinians in Gaza and wound over 170,000. That is more than 10% of the population. If that happened here in America,
More than 10% of the population. So he said what, 72,000 people dead compared to 1,200 people. Where's the line for Israel on this one? This is what I don't understand. Where is the line? When is enough killing enough? I mean, is there a line for them? Will they stop at all? 72,000, you know, that's God knows how many percentage that is in comparison to the 1,200 that died in that one attack. I mean, it just doesn't tally, does it? I mean, if you just sit back and look at it, it does not tally. Yes, they were attacked in an attack which was clearly terrorist in the manner of which it took place. Okay, not condoning it at all. However, the response must be proportionate, and this is not proportionate.
that would be over 30 million Americans dead or wounded. And in Gaza, a strong majority of the dead and wounded are women, children, and the elderly.
You know, that's the bit that gets me. All right, I mean, the last few weeks I've spent a lot of time looking into this stuff. Now, not just that, the Epstein stuff, but we will leave the Epstein stuff for another video because I don't want to mix up too many different videos together. That one deserves its own video and an extensively long video, of which I am working on. It's going to be very long. I'm going to be bringing all kinds of evidence and stuff with that one. It's going to take time, so we'll get back to that. But now I lost my train of thought, god damn it. What was I saying?
And by the way,
that
that number is likely an underestimate as to the tragedy, as bodies are literally being pulled.
Let me stop. Well, no, I remember now. So what I was talking about is the people that were being killed, the civilians that are being killed, the majority of them being women and children. Now, it's bad enough when you have a war and you've got military men dying, body bags going back to their families. That in itself is tragedy. But when it's women, when it's children, when it's elderly, it's something else, isn't it? I mean, how can anyone accept that as okay? regardless of whether you're in war or not, you don't hit civilians. You don't kill women. You don't kill children. You don't do it. And if you're happy to do that, if you've got no issues with bombing an area that may have thousands of kids in or hundreds of kids, then I'm sorry, but you're an evil person. You're evil. You have no soul, no humanity, nothing. If you can kill women and children, you deserve to be hung by your neck until you die. That's my thoughts on that. And I'm not for killing. I'm not a fan of killing. I think, life imprisonment is good enough. I don't think you should kill people. But however, I am starting to feel like there are some times when the only way to make right is just to get rid of that person for life, forever. Because if they're willing to sit and watch hundreds of women, thousands of women, and hundreds of children, or even thousands of children die, then that kind of person doesn't deserve life, in my opinion. Let's carry on.
Out of the rubble every single day.
This game.
Mr. President, Israel did not have the right to destroy virtually all of Gaza's infrastructure, including its water and sewer systems and its supply of electricity.
Okay, let's stop there for a sec. I know he's going to talk a little bit more about the infrastructure. I just want to put this bit out there. Under international law, it is illegal. It is a war crime to attack the infrastructure of a country. It is an actual war crime. So why hasn't the international community came and arrested Netanyahu? Like, care if he's the president of a country, send people in there, take him out. Let's take Venezuela as an example of this. Trump says Maduro, was it Maduro? Anyway, he was a criminal. So what did he do? He sent an elite squad in there, got him out, took him out. And personally, I think that's what should be done. Because I don't believe the people of Israel, I don't believe the majority of the people of Israel want this war to continue. I don't think they are happy about children and women being killed. How could they? Most people are we're just genuine people just trying to get on their lives, And I can't see an entire country being happy with that kind of behavior. So I know that there has been some attempts to put Netanyahu on trial for these war crimes within his own country, but obviously he's at war, so he has wartime powers, which means he can't be removed. Does that sound a little bit fishy to you? Because it sounds a bit fishy to me. Sometimes I do feel like at the moment a lot of the countries around the world are kind of sitting there thinking, oh, well, it's a hard one, the Jewish people have been through genocide, should we give them a little bit of leeway? And I think that's where a lot of people sit, and they worry about, oh, okay, are people going to think I'm anti-Jewish because I think this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I think they really play into that fact. When I say they, I'm not talking about Jewish people. I'm not, I'm specifically talking about Netanyahu and his cronies. Go them, because they're the ones doing this war. It's not Jewish people. Jewish people are not out there doing the war. All right, it's not. The average person just wants to live nice, have a family, be happy, grow old. That's the average person on this planet, you know. Even the majority of people on this planet. But there are a few that are just not right there, are they? Let's carry on.
They did not have the right to demolish every one of Gaza's 12 universities, along with hundreds of schools, dismantling their entire educational system. Vast majority of the children in Gaza today are not in school.
Let's take for a moment to analyse that. What is the benefit in war of destroying the educational system of a country? I mean, I can't think of one. I really can't. Like, let me slip. Let me bring you down my line of thinking, right? Because I'm a big gamer. You can probably see on my lovely headset, and I don't think you can see my computer, but my beastly computer there. I'm a big lover of all types of games. One game I was always a huge fan of was Age of Empires, which is basically, you know, it's like Civilization. You build up your society, you progress through the ages, and you look to take over all the land around you, or negotiate with other settlements and become partners, that kind of thing. But I always think about like my war strategies when I was looking to take over other areas, and I always generally would stay away from the universities and stuff because there's no benefit during war of taking that out. And in fact, it's actually a huge waste of military surplus. It's a waste of bombs, it's a waste of ammunition, it's a complete waste because it doesn't deal with the threat of the opposing military. So there's no benefit to it. So when you see things like this, like all of the universities, all of the schools being destroyed, and he's going to go on in a minute to talk about all of the hospitals that were destroyed as well. Where is the benefit of that? Destroying hospitals doesn't give you any kind of edge in a war because anyone generally in that hospital are wounded, injured people. They're of no use. In fact, they're actually more beneficial to you to have people in hospitals on the opposite side because those hospitals will be eating up resources. Lots of people will be in there injured, and it takes time and money to be spent on looking after those people. Whereas wiping out them, then the opposing side don't need to worry about those people anymore. It's financially no longer a burden for them. Um, I mean, that's my opinion from how I look at war myself, and how I would play war. Not that I would play real war, of course not, but in games, that's how I would see that. So it really doesn't make any sense unless your aim, if we look at the schools, is to just destroy the lives of children and teenagers and to prevent them from being educated, to keep them dumb, frustrated. It could probably, I mean, it's probably going to end up in those children themselves being radicalized in some kind of way because they've got nowhere to go, have they? You know, they're not spending their days learning at school. They're walking the streets. Maybe they're coming across military units, or maybe they're being taken in by terrorist units. And that just kind of adds to the problem, doesn't it? It doesn't aid any, it doesn't benefit any side. So why do it? Okay, I really enjoy I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't mean it to sound like I enjoy war, because I don't, I hate it. But I enjoy analysing this type of thing and thinking critically about it, because too many people are just happy to just accept what they're told on the surface and not sit back and actually think about, well, if it was me, how would I go about things? What wouldn't I do? What would I benefit from? What wouldn't I benefit from? And it kind of feels to me like they're attacking the general public in order to create martyrs, in a sense that will create more hatred against them, and then likely lead to more attacks. And I mean, let's face it, I mean, the Palestinians, they don't have anything to attack back with other than terror attacks, because what else can they do at this point? They don't have anything left. I mean, they haven't got any food or water, no schools, no hospitals. I mean, when you're beaten so far into submission and you've lost everything, you hit a point where nothing really big, that you don't really have, you no longer have principles in the sense of what you're willing to do or not do. Because if everything you've ever loved is gone, then you're mostly going to look for revenge of some sort. So I feel like these attacks on the infrastructure out there, hospitals, schools, is a way for Netanyahu to be able to ensure long-term continuation of the war, because maybe they'll stop in a while, they'll stop attacking, and Palestine will still be living in tents. People have still got no schools to go to, they've got no food to eat, they've lost all their loved ones. All they have left is that thought of revenge. I mean, I don't condone revenge, I really don't. However, if I sit down and think about, for me and my daughter, I'm a single parent, okay, and my daughter is my absolute world. I'd break the world if anything happened to her. Like, say if she went missing, I would pull the world upside down to find her. I really would, because she is everything to me. So if I apply that logic to people in Palestine, then I can see why they would retaliate in horrible manners. I mean, a lot of these people have probably completely and totally, utterly lost their minds. And war will do that. War will drive people to things they never knew possible. As sad as it is, that is the reality of ongoing war. It really is. Let's continue.
Israel did not have the right to indiscriminately bomb civilian neighborhoods and damage or destroy over 90% of the housing units in Gaza. Over 90% damaged or destroyed.
Pause there and then, hold it a little bit. 90%. I mean, that's complete annihilation. Let's face it, right? 90% is complete annihilation of a society. It's complete. If 90% of the houses are gone, where do people go? I mean, I knew it was bad. You know, I've known it's bad there, but I never really knew it was that bad in the sense of 90% of the housing destroyed. I mean, that is a lot. That is almost everything. How can you how can you support the entire population in only 10% of the required housing? It's insane. It's heartbreaking to think of, and it's these numbers. I mean, these aren't fake numbers. This is verified information, and it's just disturbing, isn't it? I mean, it really is. It's just sickening. Let's carry on.
Resulting in the vast majority of the population there now sleeping in tents. That is where they are today. Israel did not have the right to bomb over 90% of the hospitals in Gaza, hospitals, and kill 1,700 healthcare workers. And Mr. President,
90% of the hospitals as well. I mean, again, that is another war crime. It is a war crime to attack a hospital. It is a war crime. Absolute war crime. Let's go way back, way back to wars a long ago. Hospital tents on the front line. They were marked with big red crosses. I think red, yeah. And everyone knew, all of the military people knew, you do not touch them. It's a matter of principle and values. You do not touch hospitals. They are there for they're there for the goodness of humanity, to help people. Now, I've seen and heard stories from people that have served in World War II about the hospitals, and how many of the hospitals would treat soldiers from both sides. It wasn't just treating their own people. They weren't there just there to treat people, not sides. That's important. People, not sides. So where is the principle behind that? I know they come out at points and said, oh, they're using the hospitals as military bases, blah blah blah. Don't care. Don't give a toss. You do not attack. End of. I don't care if they've got military people in there, snipers in the windows, whatever. I don't care. And if so, let's look at it this way, right? Israel, huge in military, right? Compared to Gaza, just a small amount of people with handheld weapons, over-shoulder rockets, that kind of thing, right? If that hospital, say a hospital, was being used as a military base or whatever, I mean, worst case scenario, if it's becoming too much of a problem, you've got absolutely some of the top of the range special units. You send them in, you go into the hospitals, you clear them out of the military people. You don't just bomb it. You don't do that. That's not how you do it. If you have to clear it out, then you go in on foot with special forces. You clear it out, maybe station some special forces there if you have to for a while, just to make sure that it only remains to be used as a hospital and nothing else. You do not take out medical facilities. Do not do that.
Israel did not have the right to impose a blockade which prevented food, water, and medicine from entering Gaza, resulting in thousands of Palestinians being diagnosed with malnutrition and hundreds actually starving to death.
I mean, that right there is just beginning. I don't think we even need to analyse that section whatsoever. That is just, you know, let's let them starve to death. That's we don't need to analyse that. I'm sure you all have your own thoughts on that, and I think every single person on the planet can agree that people have the right to food and water.
But, Mr. President, today we're not just talking about Gaza. In the West Bank, in direct violation of international law that protects Palestinian territory, Israeli soldiers and settlers since October 2023 have killed over 1,000 Palestinians, including 233 children.
Okay, I'm going to stop there for a minute. Let's just take a moment to just take in that 223 or 33 children. Because that's sickening. Absolutely. And then let's discuss something that he said there just briefly before that. So military occupiers, outposts. In war, you would expect outposts. That happens. That's forward lines. That is part of war. That's something that I do in war games a lot. You push into a territory. You lay down a small outpost. You can push up your military to there. It's a place to rest, a place to recover, a place to rearm, and then push forward. However, I've never once then brought settlers to that area. Because if you bring in settlers, you own civilians to an active war zone, for one, a territory that doesn't belong to you, for two, it's just unheard of. The only reason I could think you would do that, I mean, there's two scenarios where I think, if I'm thinking about in the war games that I would play, the only two scenarios I would do that for is, one, if I wanted to create a food line for the front line, so a food supply for the front line, but that would only be if, say, I had pushed up through a area that was predominantly a farming area, and I wanted to keep those farms in production in order to feed the troops on the front line. But even with that, I wouldn't bring in my own civilians for that. I would repurpose some of my military units to do that. I wouldn't take from my own country civilians and put them on the front lines. You just don't do that. That's the kind of thing that could go wrong, and it could lead to civil unrest in your own society. If you start pushing civilians into a war and using them, something goes wrong, they all die. that tends to have consequences. So as a general, it's not a good thing to do. However, if I wasn't just looking to win a particular war or particular battle, if my overall goal was to take the entire land of the enemy and convert it into my own, every time I push the front line up, I might create small settlements behind. Push up further, create another settlement. Push up further, create another settlement. Because then what you're doing is you're then preventing any civilians from the other side from continuing to own those lands, as it were. You are taking that land as you push forward. And that's what it feels like to me in this. That doesn't feel like they're looking to win a war against terrorism. It feels like they're looking to take the land that is not there. This seems to be more about conquering and land theft than it does about victory over terrorism. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, let's get involved in the chat. I'd really like to hear other people's thoughts in this. This is the thinking room. We are here to sit and discuss. But just remember that every comment is a valid comment here. You will not find judgment here in this room. In my community, there will be no judgment unless you're completely evil. That's a different story. But or abusive or anything like that. We don't tolerate that kind of behavior. We're here for critical thinking and discussion. So if you can sit down and speak openly with people, regardless of whether you sit on the opposite side of the fence or not, if you can sit and have that kind of conversation, then you're in the right place. Okay, let's move on.
During that period, Mr. President, they have demolished more than 6,000 Palestinian homes and established more than 200 new illegal settlements and outposts in Palestinian territory.
Like I was just saying, that kind of movement of civilians is not in line with winning a war. It is in line with conquering another civilization. That's exactly what I would do if I was going to take everything. If I knew my goal is to take everything and wipe that population off the planet, that would be how I do it. Slowly and surely, piece by piece by piece by piece.
And let us be clear, because I think there is some confusion about this. These actions are not just the results of some extremists, out of control settlers who are just doing whatever they want. Those actions are consistent with Israeli government policy.
Now, before we go to this bit, I want you to really listen carefully to what he has to say here about the Israeli policy now. Now remember, policies that are dealt by this government. This is not the Jewish people. I'm not talking about Jewish people, not in the slightest. This is government. And we all know that governments do not listen to their people. Generally speaking, we all know that. Okay? So just bear that in mind. It's open here, listen here, with an open mind, and listen to what he says about this.
Netanyahu's security cabinet has approved the most sweeping changes to the West Bank's legal status since 1967, removing nearly all constraints on settlement expansion. Netanyahu himself declared, this is Netanyahu, quote, "There will never be a Palestinian state," end quote. And I say that.
I mean, so you're changing the legislation and the rules when it comes to settling on a foreign country's land, which is very much in line with what I was saying a minute ago. If you intend on annihilating civilization and taking their land, there will have to be some changes in the diplomacy and the legislation. If it's not currently within the legislation, you would have to just make some small adjustments. You'd probably do it quite sneaky, so your people quite they weren't aware of the extent of it, because remember, when running a country, when being a president, a king, a queen, or whatever, your goal, if your goal is to expand, dominate, conquer, generally nowadays, now if we go back, if you want to go back hundreds of years, then conquering was a lot easier back then, because life was valued at a far lower level than what it is now. But now people know the value of individual lives, and people don't want to see war. People don't want to see death. So you would have to do some very sneaky adjustments to rules. Maybe you change it, tweak it a little bit one day, leave it for a few months, go back, tweak a little bit more, maybe tweak the wording a little bit, and you would never really put the full thing out. You would release, you would do press releases that hit points but didn't tell you the fine print, so that you're giving your civilization, your citizens, sorry, you're giving them the information, but in snippets, so they don't realize the extent of it. Because if you just come out to your civilization and say, right, we're going there, we're going to destroy the country, we're going to take it for ourselves, people are going to go, hey, hold on a second, that doesn't quite sit right. So you couldn't do it that way. You would have to do it little bits. And this thing, it's been what, 40 odd years, maybe longer. I'm not really sure how long this war has gone on in total, with Israel and the Palestinians. I really don't know. Okay, I'm 43. I had to think about that for a minute, because you get old, forgetting my age. So I'm 43. So this started long before I knew anything about this kind of stuff. So it's quite easily for changes to be made over decades to legislation, so that it wouldn't be noticed, because populations age. People have stints where they are paying close attention to politics, and then they'll have stints when they're not paying much attention to politics. So in order to get past the majority of your citizens, because that's all you need to do, you just need to get past the majority of them. It doesn't matter about the smaller section of them, because conspiracy theorists easily show you, if there's a small section of it, they're easily to sort of go, no, that's conspiracy, that's this, that's that. It's easy to manipulate the rest of your society into thinking they're nuts. That's easy. I mean, anyone knows, if you mind games, if you know, if you don't, do a little bit more research into this kind of thing, or join us in the chat here and let's talk more about it. But yeah, so over many years, you could easily change legislation in a way that people don't realize what you've done, unless they were to sit down with a fine-tooth comb and go through it all, which the general public don't do. They don't. I mean, for me in the UK here, I generally don't so much, because I think 90% of the politicians these days, they're my opinion is two sides of the same coin. Most of them only care about themselves, their corruption, their helping their own mates out, that kind of stuff, their own wealth, their own power, that kind of thing. So really, I try not to get too much in with politics, because I feel it's not all but politicians. Don't get me wrong. I feel there's probably some really, really good people out there that want to do the best by their people. However, there's always going to be major people that don't. So I personally don't get too much into politics, because I think it's the systems themselves that needs correcting, not the politicians. Because I feel if you change the system into a fair system that's right for people, then you won't get these kind of bad politicians in place. Personally, I think that most legislation and stuff should be to a national vote for any country. I think anything, and I don't just mean major changes, I mean small changes. We're going to have a tax rise, or we're going to put a tax on this, or we want to put a rule on that. I think everything should come down to, first, a national debate where people can, not only politicians, but people from society can join in with the debate. And then there should then be a national vote on these things. I don't think any government body should have any power to make any decision without without the agreement of the people. That's my opinion. So yes, I mean, back to this, it would be very easy to sneak in that kind of legislation over an extended period of time without people realizing what is happening. So let's get back to the video.
There's some people here who still say, well, we're in favor of a two-state solution. That is not Mr. Netanyahu's position.
Yeah, that's the other thing there that I missed out on, that because I went on that little rant there, so I kind of missed out. The fact that he quoted Netanyahu directly there, saying that there will never be a Palestinian state, that is a very, very clear statement that cannot be argued with. You cannot stand and say, well, maybe he meant this, maybe he meant that. There's no possible way to twist that statement at all. It is a very, very, very clear statement that there shall be no Palestine. That statement there says that he is planning to do exactly what we've discussed as we've gone through here, which is to conquer and to take over. Whether that be through wiping them out or not, it's a different story. I don't pretend to know the insides of somebody else's mind. However, the statement is very clear.
Quote, he said, there will never be a Palestinian state. His finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, bragged that new settlement construction in the West Bank would bury, that's his word, bury the idea of a Palestinian state. But
I mean, that statement there kind of fits in line with what's already going on, because a lot of people are buried. Lots of people are buried under rubble. women, children, the elderly. And let's not forget, if you're an animal lover, pets too, all buried. And the millions of tons of rubble that used to be buildings. So that statement seems pretty in line with what's happening. Okay, let's continue.
Mr. President, it is not just Gaza and the West Bank. We now know that Netanyahu convinced President Trump to start an unprovoked and unconstitutional war on Iran.
I'm going to stop there for a second because I am going to do a video on Iran too. That will be coming up. I know, probably in the next week. I've got quite a lot on at the moment with this new channel. I'm also in the process of writing a book series, so juggling a lot of things as well as being a single dad. So a lot of stuff going on, but I'm gonna get to it. So yeah, if it doesn't come for a little while, just please be understanding. I will get there. It will come. So yes, we'll come back to that Iran. There was something else he said there that I wanted to mention, but sometimes I rant and I forget things. It's old man memory. Give me a second. Yes. So the Trump bit. Something to me doesn't feel like there was any real level of convincing. Now, I won't go too deep into this because it's actually going to come up in both my other videos, which will be the Iran video and the Epstein video. If you know, you know. It's just extremely I don't know, perfected timing that, Trump Epstein files, Mossad agents, spoken about within those files too. And then suddenly, Trump seems to be doing what he's told. It's an interesting one. I'm going to leave that there, okay? Because I don't want to go too much into it at this point. But we'll leave that bit there, okay? Just something to think about. Again, yeah, any insights on anything we said so far, jump in that comment there and let's have a discussion.
To start an unprovoked and unconstitutional war on Iran. For 40 years, Netanyahu has wanted the United States to participate with Israel in a war against Iran, and finally, after 40 years of effort, he finally found in Trump a president willing to go along. He couldn't get Democratic presidents in the past, couldn't get Republican presidents in the past. In Trump, he finally found a president willing to go along.
I really would like to know why it was so easy for him to suddenly decide to jump in on it. But again, we'll leave that for the other videos.
This war in violation of international law has resulted already in the deaths of thousands of civilians, including hundreds of children in Iran and Lebanon, including 26 Israeli civilians.
Yeah, there is one thing I was saving for the Iran video. It is going to be in the Iran video. Just while we're on the note of children, I don't know how many of you are fully aware of, on the first day of the Iran war, nobody's at this point, no one's claimed knowledge of who it was, but they know it was a Tomahawk missile, guided missile, one of the most advanced guided missiles available to man right now. Girls' school destroyed 168 children. I'll just leave that one there for you, because that's something that brought tears to my eyes when I found out about that.
Are now dead, and 13 American soldiers who have lost their lives so far in this conflict. Mr. President, all over the world,
I understand, and I feel I understand why he mentioned those 13 US soldiers there, because obviously this is the US Senate there, so he wanted to get that point across. But in my eyes, those. Let me refrain this, because I don't want anyone to think. I don't want anyone to look at what I'm about to say in the wrong manner, because every life is important. Any death is unnecessary, uncalled for, and creates pain and loss for all of the people involved, the family members, the friends, the kids. Just, it's a mess when people die. It's not nice for anyone. However, 13 under the grandness of this war, a very small number, isn't it? I mean, 13. What did we say earlier? So the 1,200 in Israel on that particular day, and then the 73,000. So yeah, well, my heart goes out to everyone that dies. All right, and heart goes out to to all the families of the dead people from all sides of any war. Death is not a nice thing for anyone to have to deal with. But 73,000. That should be the main focus point, I would say. What's your opinions on that one?
including the United States, hundreds of millions of innocent people are suffering the economic consequences of this war, with higher prices and growing scarcity of basic goods. I believe in Vermont.
So when he says hundreds of millions of people suffering from this war, yes, there is an extended effect of this war that affects everyone. Well, I'd say almost everyone on the planet. Probably doesn't affect the top 10%. If you know, you know. However, those troubles and struggles that they are having, again, kind of irrelevant. I know I'm paying extra for fuel, extra to heat my house, extra to feed my kids, and it's tight, it's tough, it's hard, yes. But would I see my struggles as relevant in comparison to what people are on the front line of this war? No, not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. I would not swap my struggles for that. I mean, if I was a single parent, maybe I would. Not if I was not a parent, maybe I would do that. Swap, so that one family could come here and maybe have a little bit of normalcy in their life. Maybe I could go there and a child could come here in my place. I'd do that. But on the grand scheme of things, the rest of the world that is not in war, I understand your pain, but yeah.
Now, the price of gas, regular gas, is about $4 a gallon. Parts of the country, it is even higher than that. But, Mr. President, for Netanyahu, Gaza was not enough.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want.
We're not all quite there, are we? Not all quite on the rich front.
Attacking Iran was not enough. Netanyahu is now waging a full-blown war of expansion against Lebanon. That war in Lebanon has not only killed more than 2,000 people,
I'm going to stop there
but
for a second, because I think he's actually way off on the numbers that have been killed in Lebanon from what I've looked into, and it's very difficult because of the fog of war and the amount of fake news out there. But from what I can gather, it's more like around sort of 5,000 to 6,000. Now, there's no way really to tell whether those are military units or whether that is mostly civilian. However, I have seen many videos coming out of Lebanon that show a lot of these bombings that are going. Also, not just missile bombings. Also, I've seen it's very hard. I know they're not fake videos, right? Because the AI videos, they're good, but if you look close enough, you can generally see inconsistencies, whether it be shading, shadows, things that don't quite add up. You can generally see that they're not fake. But I've also, so on that note, that I've seen videos which seem more like some buildings that were being taken down, but not by missiles, by what I can only suggest would be some kind of C4 or some kind of explosive, detonated explosives planted and detonated, because there were no missiles coming. The explosion seemed to be more at the base before the buildings fell. However, as well, not however, but on top of that, a lot of these videos that I'm seeing are apartment buildings. They're not military structures in any way, shape, or form. Now, counter that, I've looked at, okay, so if they're apartment buildings, we know that rockets get launched from Lebanon into Israel. We know that. It's one of those things that is happening. So you could say that maybe these rockets are shoulder fire rockets. They're being fired from apartment buildings, which is quite possible. It is very quite possible. But I take you back to what I was speaking about earlier with regards to the hospitals, okay? And about how if you know a particular space is being used, then you send your elite forces in. You don't just take the whole building out. So a lot of these apartment buildings as well that I've been looking at, they are, some of them probably I'd say 7, 8, 9, 10 stories buildings. They look like residential buildings completely. Now, you don't, if you've got a residential building and you've got, say, one terrorist or one flat that is being used by terrorist activities, or listen, I find it very difficult to say terrorist activities when it comes to this war, because I'm not sure we can class it as terrorist activities when your country itself is under attack by another country. Can you really say that it's a terrorist attack? I'm not going, oh yeah, Hitler, yeah, terrorist. It's not really that simple on the face of things, is it? It really isn't. Militants, I think militants is probably the better word for it, rather than terrorist in this scenario anyway. If you agree, let me know down in the comments. If you disagree, also let me know down in the comments. So my point being with this one, say you have a block of apartments. It's got say well, let's say like 5 apartments on each floor, block of 10. Okay, we've got 25, 50. I can't add up today, I'm quite tired to be honest. So there's a lot of apartments in there. Let's say they're not all occupied because maybe some have already fled the war. So let's say half of them are occupied by families. So women, children, elderly, people with their dogs, their cats. You know, do you bomb the entire building, kill all the civilians that could be there, children, women, elderly, cats, dogs? Do you do that for the sake of taking out 1, maybe 2 militants, maybe 3, maybe 4? Don't. Do you do that? I don't think you do you? I don't think so. I don't think you can justify not only destroying, again, infrastructure, housing, but the possibility of killing innocents to retaliate on possible couple of militants within that area. I don't think that's, you can't justify, in my eyes, that's not this, you can't justify that. That's how I see that, but let me know what you're thinking down the bottom.
Has resulted in Israel occupying 14% of Lebanese territory. Let me repeat that. The war in Lebanon has not only killed more than 2,000 people, but has resulted in Israel occupying 14% of Lebanese territory.
Yeah, so this bit directly relates back to what we were saying earlier about war and conquer, where I was saying about when talking about settlements and things, they're now occupying these areas. That again sounds to me like conquering other countries, not attempting to win a war against terrorism, which is, you know, what they continue to claim they are doing. But that doesn't really work, does it? That's not really what they're doing from my eyes.
Mr. President, the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, has announced that all Lebanese border villages will be demolished. His
okay. So, my thoughts on this. There are military strategies that may explain that kind of behavior. I'm going to say may, because it is a strategy. Whether it is a good one or not, debatable. So let me look at it. Let me say this way. So say you've got 2 cities right next to each other, that war, they're pretty damn close, tight knit together, lots of buildings. lots of crossfire going on. One side pushes over, maybe it takes the first 2 or 3 rows of these buildings, clears them out, but then decides to flatten all them out. Now the only 2 reasons I could think for doing that, but again, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense as a military strategy, is one, if you were going to decide to, if you push forward just to clear the closest area, the proximity that is the most danger to your city, what the most dangerous area would be that direct line that divides you and them. So if you were to push forward, clear that out, then your plan was to then retreat back to your line, yet first destroy that that initial buildings all the way along your front line. You would create an open section for warfare, where almost like in World War II, where you would create trenches, you're building in, but you're also creating at the front of your trenches, you're creating a defensive line. So your barbed wire, that kind of thing. So you're creating somewhere that would, an open area that would need to be crossed if any incursions were going to happen from the opposite side. However, as Lebanon are not pushing, and their military isn't trying to push out and across into Israel, it makes very little sense. And also, with that note, the Israeli military have not pulled back to hold their own line. They have continued to push forward and hold that front line within the territory of Lebanon. So where they are holding forward here, Israel, let me move over it. Israel here, Lebanon here, well, the new line of Israel here, and that is part of Lebanon. What they're doing is they're destroying everything behind their main front, which has no military benefit. The only benefit to that will be that you are now flattening lands which you intend on taking for your own, on which you can then rebuild new settlements. See, militarily, it doesn't make sense that they would do that. There's no benefit from it. None whatsoever. None. Unless you plan to take the land permanently. Okay, let's move on.
Exact words, following, quote, the model in Gaza. They're going to demolish border villages. Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, has warned that Dayaya, a suburb of South Beirut, quote, will look like Khan Yunis, end quote, a city in Gaza that Israel reduced to rubble. In other words, what they did in Gaza is now what they intend to do in parts of Lebanon.
That statement right there is a clear statement of complete destruction, isn't it? Threatening to wipe the entire area out, flatten all buildings. That means all infrastructure, all civilian buildings, all houses, all shops, everything. They plan to wipe that area clean. Why do you wipe an area clean? So that you can rebuild. Yeah? So that you can rebuild what you want to build there. That's the only reasoning behind it. Or the only reason I can see behind it. If you have a different opinion of that, please, let's discuss it below. All right, let's move.
These, Mr. President, are not threats, they are promises. For all of the reasons that I have given, and more, and you're going to hear more from some of my colleagues in a few moments, support for Israel in this country has plummeted. Today, according to a recent Pew poll, 80% of Democrats now have an unfavorable opinion of Israel, and 41% of Republicans share that view.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there because what I didn't even realize this has been a really long video. Far longer than what I was expecting, considering we are only analysing a 15-minute video. So far we've analysed 12 minutes of it and we've been pretty long. So we're going to leave it there because the rest of what Bernie says here is mostly about the population of America and the majority of them disagreeing with the wars, and that Israel itself, the support for Israel within the American people is plummeting, absolutely plummeting. So I don't think we need to go too in depth with that one. Yeah, so we're going to leave it there. So I appreciate everyone coming in here to this channel. Please do get in the comments below. Let's have a conversation about this stuff. If you disagree with any of the things I've said, let's talk about it. Because the only way we come to agreements, the only way we get to find truth, and to unite as people is to sit down and have conversations about things, not to scream and shout at each other in faces, blah blah. None of that doesn't work. That's just you can't build a better world by screaming and shouting at each other. You have to sit down and you have to really listen to each other. That's why I don't care if you come in and you say you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I'll sit down and I'll talk with you, because that's how we evolve, by conversation and listening to each other properly, understanding each other's point of view, and then having that conversation, finding common ground and building from there. That's how we make a change in life. So let's do it. So thank you all for tuning in. I'd much appreciate it, really appreciate it. I'd really like if you give this a like, give it a share. I'm not really one for asking people to do things for me, but it'd be really good to build a nice community here so we can discuss things like this, not just world politics, not just wars. I want to be talking about some good stuff out there as well. So this is the Thinking Room. I am Chris. Thank you all, and welcome to the Thinking Room, and have a great day, guys, and I'll catch you all later.